All right, this week we are going to make the dolls a really precious Christmas Yule log cake. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. All right, for the cake portion of our Yule log, we need two main colors of clay. We need a white and we need a dark brown. My white today is just original Sculpey, and my brown is half of a regular size block of Fimo Soft in chocolate brown. Slightly more white than brown. And to the brown, and it's going to be a little difficult in this quantity, but I'm going to add just a small amount of sand. I happen to have white. If I had brown, I would use it, but I don't have any brown. So all I have is white right now. So I'm going to get something to kind of scoop out a little bit. I don't want a lot. This is going to give us a head start on our cake texture, because we want to make the cake look like it's a cake. And cakes have a kind of a crumbly texture to them. So that little bit of sand, it won't make a lot of difference, but it will give us a slight head start. So I'm going to turn the camera off and I'm going to get that sand worked throughout my clay, which with this quantity will probably take me several minutes. So I will be back when it's mixed in. All right, I have the sand mixed through as evenly as I can, and now I'm going to roll this out. I'm not really concerned about making this an even amount of, an even thickness, or being really careful about what thickness I do make it. I'm more interested in getting a nice sized surface here. And let's measure and see how big that got. Okay, so I've got, that'll probably do. I want my white just a little bit thicker than my brown and about the same size. Yeah, that's good. All right, now, actually want to offset these a little bit. I'm going to make a straight cut on one edge of that and set it back from the edge of the brown. So I've got a little brown heading out there. And I'm going to cut this fairly straight on this side. Now we're going to roll it up. And I'm kind of pushing on the ends. I'm going to get it as tight as I can, and it's already, it's a little, shoot. Okay. Let's cut one end off and see how it looks. Yeah, that'll do. All right. Kind of try and get this. By pushing on the ends, I'm kind of evening it out and getting it just a little bit thicker. It's a little thinner. Ideally, I'd like this, it's about a little over 1 inch in diameter. I'd like it a little thicker, but I didn't have that much clay. Let's see, about 2 inches, so it will do. So now roll that, get it nice and tight. And I'm going to cut one slice off of this so that we can have one slice to serve. Actually, we'll slice two, because it would make more sense to have two slices for the dolls. And it's okay if this flattens a little bit on the bottom, since in real life these usually are. Now, we need a pointy tool. My favorite pointy tool is my dental pick, and I'm going to bring you guys down just a little bit. Try to do this slowly so I don't get you seasick. Don't want any motion sickness there. All right, now, put my glasses on so I can see the little details. We're going to take our pointy tool and we're just going to kind of make little tiny circles. And by putting that little bit of sand, you can leave the sand out if you want. The sand kind of helps it to break apart a little bit. More sand works better. I didn't have a lot, so I didn't use a lot of it in here. But what we want is we want a cake texture, and cakes have crumb, and that's what we are duplicating here. And I think on videos in the past, a few years ago when I did some food videos on this channel, we did some other cake type, crumb type textures. So I know you guys have seen these before on this channel. Try not to get into the white, but it's okay if it kind of pushes over into the white. Just don't texture the white with this tool right now. And hopefully you can see that I'm raising up quite a bit of texture. And I'm using my thumb my fingers, especially my thumb, to support the side of the cake, the side of the clay, so it doesn't push away. And I'm using my little finger on my right hand to anchor my hand, so I have better control. All right, now this, I'm actually going to set it down. Now we only need to texture one side of these because the other side will be laying on the surface. The slices you can either display with the slice, with the whole cake, or you can put them onto a plate to have as a serving. But it's more fun to have this cake sliced so you can see it, so you can see inside of it. After I texture this slice, I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to try and get some pictures real close of this. Once I get both slices textured, I'm going to bake this at I think I'm going to go to 250. My oven's been giving me a little bit of trouble. I do recommend when you're baking clay to keep a oven thermometer in your oven and check it from time to time while you're baking the clay. My oven has been creeping up above the set temperature lately, so I'm going to set my oven at 250. I'm going to bake this probably 45 minutes to an hour because this is really thick, probably pretty close to an hour. I might pull these little pieces out after about a half hour though. So I'm going to get the other slice done, and then when these are baked and cooled back to room temperature, oh, wait a minute. No, I'm not. I just realized I forgot we have to texture the other cake layer before we put it in the oven. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot. We don't want to forget to texture our cream filling. So for that, you need some kind of a ball tool. And we're just going to push in. Oh, it's a little bit big. This one's probably a little small, but then I will finish texturing the other slice. There, make it look kind of fluffy. Yeah, that other one's too big. Just use this one. If you don't have a tool like this, if you have a round-headed pin, sewing pin, you could use that. If it's plastic, be sure and clean it off. A lot of the quilters sewing pins are glass top. Those would be perfect. All right, now I'll texture this one and then bake them, and then I'll come back when they're cooled. All right, these are baked and cooled, and they look so realistic. They look fantastic. So now we are going to make a frosting or icing, whatever you want to call it. I've got the leftovers from the clay we used to make that. And I also have some leftovers from my other channel. Same exact colors and mixture. So I'm going to knead these together. The reason I want to use both brown and white together is I want the frosting on this to be more of a milk chocolate than a dark chocolate, because if we're going to go to the work of texturing our cake and then putting frosting on and texturing that, we want everybody to know that it's different. So I'm going to get this all mixed together. And if it turns out that it's a little too light, I'll just add a little more dark chocolate color to it. But I'm going to get a nice, even, kind of milk chocolatey color. And when that is done, I'll be back and we can start the process of icing our Yule logs. All right, here's the brown I came up with. I kind of played around with my clay and got a decent brown. It will probably darken just a little bit when I bake it. And because of the original Sculpey, this is really sticky. So I'm going to put some cornstarch out and kind of turn it over so it's got cornstarch on both sides. Now I'm going to roll out a piece that is more than big enough, and I'm going to measure it before I put it on. I want it to go from here all the way around to there, and then I'm going to cut some for the end. So from there, yeah, that's going to be big enough. So we need to put TLS, transparent liquid Sculpey, on here. And because this clay is so soft, I'm not going to I don't think anyway, I'll have to add any TLS to my icing or frosting. I kind of played around with it off camera. And it looks like it's going to do what I want it to without too much trouble. Let's see, I'm going to cut this here and here. And you're not going to frost the bottom because you wouldn't frost the bottom of a cake. Yes, even with the cornstarch, this is sticking to my table. Okay, so get this down to where I want it, and then I'm going to cut it. I'm trying to do this without sticking my head right in front of the camera. Hopefully I will be successful. This. Now be extremely careful that you don't cover the end that you spent all that time texturing. I want to cover this end, and we'll also need some for our little slices. Dipping my fingers into the corns. Oh, I forgot to put. Oh, too late now. Forgot to put TLS on there, but I think it's going to stick anyway because it is so soft. Hopefully I'm staying under camera here. Rid of that seam. To do that, I'm going to dip a ball tool into my cornstarch and kind of start rubbing the seam here. I'm going to try and erase that seam. Dip my fingers in the cornstarch. All right, now that looks pretty good, but it's not looking like it's been frosted. Oh, let's go ahead and get these guys. Whoops. I seem to have a case of the dropsies today. Okay. Came all the way down. I am going, oh no, I don't want to turn the camera off because then you guys won't see what I'm doing. All right, let's roll this back out to about the same thickness. Doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, TLS acts as glue when you're attaching raw clay to baked clay. Yeah, you're still kind of sort of under screen here. I will try to move this forward in just a second before I move to anything else. There we go. I'm going to have to patch it, but that's okay. We can do that. I came up a little short on the other side. That's okay. Because first I'm going to cut it even with the back. Ah, stay. Okay, it's going to be right then. I'm going to leave this fighting with the clay in, simply so you can see that it happens to me too, and there's ways around it. Get some cornstarch on my fingers so that I cannot, so I won't stick. There we go. Now I've got it more under control. Am I happy with that thickness? I think I'm pretty happy with how thick it is, but I do want to trim that. All right, I'm going to turn the camera off and get the other slice done, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to texture this. All right, all of those are covered, so now I'm going to do some texturing. I'm going to use a ball tool for this, and I'm going to keep dipping it. I'm put my cornstarch right here so it's convenient. This is just a container of cornstarch, just like you would use in the kitchen. I'm going to start with this end. I'm going to make little circles. The cornstarch will help my tool to not stick too much. Doesn't have to be real deep markings, just want an impression that there's some ridges there. I think I'm going to go to a bigger ball tool for the top, actually the biggest one. And at the end of each line, I am wiping off any clay that my tool has picked up and then re-dipping in the cornstarch. And there's a lot of ways to do the outside frosting on these. Go ahead and do an online search. You'll find lots of ways of decorating a Yule log cake. Okay, that looks good. And it's okay if the frosting pulls over here a little bit, not quite that much. Well, yeah, I'll leave it like that. And we're just going to put, oops, a little deep there. And if you don't, you can also just do this. This also makes a good little bark mark. And this looks kind of like, let's see, let's get this frosting cut off the back though. Now that we have smushed it around, it has gone behind. We can also kind of tease some of this. I'll use my fingers to kind of pull some of that frosting forward so it looks kind of like we've cut the cake. Let's just use this one for this. First, let's get the back trimmed again, because the clay naturally wants to go behind the cake. Alright, now since the cake itself is baked, we're just curing the frosting at this point. I'm going to put this in a 250-degree oven for probably 10 minutes, and when it's baked and then cooled to room temperature, I'll come back and we'll go to the next step. Alright, my Yule logs are all baked and out of the oven. I decided I want to make some little red berries to decorate the top of my Yule log. And for that, I've just got some red clay here. It's a Sculpey. I think it's just red. Red Hot Red, I guess, is what this one is. And it's turning my fingers all red. But I'm just going to make a couple here on camera, and then I'll do the rest off camera. But I'm going to roll a nice little snake and get out my drill gauge to size this. I want to make it about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. I'm not adding anything to this clay. I'm simply rolling it straight out of the package. I'm trying to, I'm looking off to the side here. There's the 1/8 inch. And this is a wonderful tool for sizing small diameters of snakes of polymer clay. That's even a little small, but that's fine. It's close enough. What I'm going to do is just cut some little tiny pieces. I'm going to try and keep my pieces that I cut all approximately the same size. I'll just do a few here. And then it's, oops, that's two, that's two. Then I'm just going to roll little tiny balls, and then these are going to go in a 250-degree oven for probably about 5 minutes. Now be cautious of red. Red will discolor very, very easily. And that's the case with no matter what you're using in red. Red is probably the hardest color to work with. But I am going to make several of these, probably a dozen or two. So I have plenty, and then I will bake them off. And when they are baked, I'll come back and we will decorate the top of our Yule log. All right, now we're going to start getting everything ready to finish up. So we've got our little red beads little red balls that I made. And I'm going to put just the tiniest amount of Mod Podge in there. That's just a matte Mod Podge, which we're going to use again here in just a second. I've got them in this little area just so I can keep them kind of under control for a few minutes while I do this. I'm going to get them all coated. And I have a piece of parchment paper here. And I've got just some white glitter. Basically, we're making sugar-coated cranberries, I guess. All right. Off camera, I will go ahead and get these all separated out so they don't dry in a clump. But in the meantime, I'm going to go on and get some Mod Podge started on our Yule logs. So we're going to start with this white creamy filling, and I've got a fairly small brush and more matte Mod Podge right there. Now try not to get this on the cake portion. We want just our frosting and our filling to be Mod Podged. It's those little details that make the difference between something that looks realistic and something that just looks like a piece of plastic or a piece of clay. All right, and I'm going to let that sit for just a few minutes while I do these. And you notice I'm being very careful to not get my Mod Podge onto the cake. We want to see the difference. All right, now I can probably go on and do part of this. Then I'm going to go along, and anywhere I see the milk chocolate frosting, or whatever color frosting you put on. And it's okay that it came out like this. I like that, because when you cut, sometimes the frosting will pull like that. And I'll do this in a couple of stages because I don't want to get my fingers in it. So I'm going to do there, and then I'm going to do this end. Now be sure and wrap your paintbrush up. What I'm going to do is, since I'm going to be using this brush a couple of times with the Mod Podge, I'm going to, when I get done here for this part, I'm going to wrap this in a wet wipe and set it on my tile, and then when I come back, it'll still be ready to use. So I'm going to get the white filling on the other slice done, and when those are dry enough to handle, I'll come back and we'll finish up the Mod Podging. All right, now that the ends are dry, I can kind of hold on to this now. It's fairly dry, it's not completely dry. And I'm just going to give this a nice coat of matte Mod Podge. Now matte Mod Podge, it won't give it a lot of gloss, just the tiniest bit. So it will look pretty convincing as frosting. You know how that has just a little bit of gloss to it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to finish that, and then I'm also going to do the sides. See if I can not drop this. The sides on these. And when these are dry, I'm going to wrap my brush up again, because when these are dry and my Mod Podge on my container lid there has thickened up and gotten stickier, I'm going to come back and we are going to attach some decorations. So I'll be back when this coat dries. Oh, all right, now that this is dried and this has formed a nice skin and it's nice and thick, and that's what I want. So I'm going to actually be kind of lining these up here, because I want them to look like they were cut from this. So a little more through here. Now I have my glitter. This is in this. No, it does not have a sprinkle top, unfortunately. Now, I'm going to put some fresh Mod Podge right there. I'm going to put some dots. I'm going to try and keep these in threes. Then I've got my trusty piece of raw spaghetti, which I'm going to break a fresh end, get it wet. These little balls are just a tiny bit heavy for this. And then I'm going to put other little groups of 3 dots of Mod Podge all along the top, kind of in a row down through here. So I'm not going to make you sit through that. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. When I get it done, I'll come back, I'll show you what it looks like, then we'll let it dry. So I'll be right back. All right, those are all applied. I'm going to let that Mod Podge dry, and then we'll come back and we'll put a coat of Mod Podge over the glitter and the little red balls. So I'll be back when that's dry. All right, our Mod Podge is dry, and I love how this looks. I'm hoping photographs are going to show it to its best, make it look really good, because looking at it on the video preview screen and in person, there's a world of difference. In real life, in person, this looks so realistic. And as you saw, those textures are easy. You just have to practice a little bit. So also, if you want, now this is fairly secure. I mean, I'm pushing on these, they're not coming off, but if they were played with a lot or handled a lot, they would probably come loose. You might want to put a couple more coats of Mod Podge over this if it's going to be handled a lot. Also, I ran out of beads, of these little beads, because I dropped some when they came out of the oven and I can't find them. So, and I didn't feel like redoing all of them. Now, if you have a coarser glitter, that would probably work better than the really fine glitter I have, but I didn't have anything that was coarser, had a more coarse texture to it. But I love these. They look so real. These guys could be glued to plates or left separate so that they could be played with or displayed however you want to display them. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, push the like button. Leave me a comment. Share the video with your friends that do doll crafts also. I'd love to have more people watching the videos so that we can grow the channel. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and you enjoy my content, hit that subscription button and the notification bell so that you know when I put out a new video. And I will talk to you next time.